Hey, good afternoon. Nope. Hey, good morning. Try that again. What's going on? Happy 11 o'clock. Spectacular to see you all. Oh, we got people popping into the waiting room. Let me get them in here. All righty. Third book in as many months. That's pretty exciting. Isn't it fun to just kind of cruise through these books? I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
It's like reading a textbook sometimes. I'm just like, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to catch up to this. I fell behind with one thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm out. I knew this was coming, so I tried to get ahead.
Cool. I love that. I love that. So let's dive right in. So we had the good news is that we only had the first 48 pages, right? So we only had less than a week to get that done. Oh wow, look at that. I just realized I'm reading from a shift book with Gary, Dave, and Jay's autographs. I didn't know I had that. and yet there they are. What do you know? I should probably mark this so that I don't give it away or something. This is a signed copy.
A special book.
Brilliant. All right, so there's one thing actually two things I wanted to point out. This book is kind of awesome for if you go to page XV right in the very beginning, it's the first page of the acknowledgments. It's the first picture of the mastermind group from Gary's Top 200 in the spring of 2008. If you take a look at the back row all the way on the left, what do you notice? Or I should say, who do you notice? It's Jody. Yeah, back row on all the way on the left. That's Jody, boxer.
That's right cool.
There. Yeah, so Jody was in the one of the mastermind groups that they started to work on when they wrote this book. And then the other thing that's cool to notice is that if you go to page XX in the acknowledgments, in that middle long paragraph where he's thanking all these people, like 5 lines up from the bottom in that middle paragraph, it says, thanks to agent Doug Holliday, whose wisdom and well-designed graphs greatly enhanced our treatment of pricing. You see it?
I don't see it yet. XX.
Do we have different books?
I don't know. We might. I don't think I have an access.
Huh. That's interesting. Well, so go to the last page of your acknowledgments. I'm sure it's in there, but it's
last page of my acknowledgments. Yes.
Oh, look at that.
This is what I have.
Books.
Yeah.
Wow. They've added to it.
Yeah. New forward.
Oh, yes. I have mine that says the new forward.
I think I have that book over here. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have the right one. So we're all on the same page.
Right.
Literally on the same page.
Literally.
Okay, so I wondered, like does no one recognize Jody? Like why is that?
No, I saw Jody.
Yeah, we have Jody, but we don't have the XX in that section.
I'm like, I don't have an XX.
Okay. So for you, it's Roman numeral 18. It's XVIII.
Okay.
Doug Holliday, there he is.
Right there in the dead middle of that page. And so Doug is also one of your colleagues. He's not active any longer, but he is a founding member of the Ridgefield Market Center, still a minority investor in the Ridgefield Market Center, and was an active real estate agent and your colleague until about probably 5 or 6 years ago, where he really kind of just retired. But when we get to that page, I'll show you the graphs Doug wrote. Doug drew the graphic and sent it to Gary and said, you know what, I think this is a cool way to explain what's going on in the marketplace. And Gary liked it so much that he put it in this book. So
Cool.
you have some kind of neat ties to this book just locally, which I wanted to point out to you because frankly I had kind of forgotten about it until I started to go through it again. So, all righty. So now that we've name dropped and done all that fun stuff, and got Rick in the right book, so we could all talk about the same page numbers. This was kind of fun, right? These first three tactics. The first two really kind of quick. The third a little less quick. But talk to me about between the intro that you read, which would have been pages, whatever it was, the 1 through whatever that first tactic is, including the law of equilibrium. So 1 through 20, before we get into the tactics. Anything from the intro or the law of equilibrium, or if you want to dive right into the tactics, what did you find exciting about these first 48 pages? Where do you want to start? There we go, Marcel. Thank you so much.
No, it's not about the book, but is about all the books that we're reading so far. I was just thinking of if Rick can give us a training about implementing what we were reading on the books. The MRA, I didn't get the time to implement. I started, but I stopped what we're learning. Same thing for the one thing. I don't know if we need times to implement or training to implement. Any idea will be helpful about that.
Yeah, sure. So that's a great thought, Marcel. And what I would say to you is from 10,000 feet, the best path that I find is to, take all your notes and take all your ahas and find that lead domino, figure out what that first best thing for you to implement is, and focus on implementing one thing, right? Focus on implementing one thing from the MREA. And so maybe from the MREA, you start and you look around and say, okay, I don't have any kind of a real lead generation strategy, or I don't have a marketing strategy. And so you maybe focus just on that till that gets done. Maybe you look around and say, I've never worked with the economic model. So you stop and you do the economic model for your business first before you do something else. To me, as a business owner, I'm going to tell you that I've been searching for that lead domino for the last couple of months, as we head into 2022, as we head into change and whatever else we're headed into, trying to find that lead domino that really answers the question: if I tackle this, what else does that knock down? What else becomes either easier or unnecessary? And the first part of this book answered that question for me. So what I find it kind of fabulous is this is now our third book, and even it's taken me right until the first part of the third book to then go back to the other two books and say, okay, now I understand it. Now I see how it all fits together. I know what that lead domino is. I'm not going to say it yet because my guess is that one of you will say it. But I think that my quick answer, Marcel, is pick one thing and work on that. And we are on the tail end working on something called our implementation team, to figure out how to help each of you and all of us kind of implement, not just learn, but actually do and implement, and figuring out what that looks like on the back end as a department for implementation. So stay tuned on that. But until then, pick one thing and just do it. Tony.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. So I'm not a big tattoo guy, but when I read this, it was so good because it's something that but it was articulated so succinctly that I've actually thought of getting it tattooed on my forehead, and that is on page 12, the last paragraph. If individuals understand a shift or have actually experienced one, they know it.
997.
I wrote down that number. If individuals understand a shift or have actually experienced one, they know they have to push past the fear and face two tests. First to survive and then to thrive. I mean, I've been through shifts and all I've concentrated on is surviving. And this really kind of was a bit of a gut punch, but really important. So,
Yeah. Gary goes on to talk about in the coming pages that we read, right? Historically, the greatest shifts in wealth happen during, troubled times. And so as things start to feel less solid, that's your opportunity, right? Unless you're running from it, and then it's not your opportunity. Well, it still is your opportunity. You're just missing it. Right? So you have to run towards it, which sometimes feels like running into the fire, and yet that's at times what it is. Donna Gilbert, good morning.
Good morning. And so on that running theme, that's interesting because I turned to a page. We weren't on our schedule what to read. The forward wasn't part of it. And yet I'd encourage everyone to go back and read the forward because there is so much valuable information. If I could just read two little bits, then I'll feel better about myself. Here it is. So this is on page, and these are Roman numerals. I think it's 38 in Roman numerals. If you want to run through a wall, don't judge your effort based on the wall. Let the wall judge your effort and deal with it. The wall isn't your issue, your effort is. And then further down that page, it gives us the other solution: laser-like focus and relentless effort. It's an incredible formula for achievement. When this is your blueprint for action, the market informs your present, but doesn't determine your future. Should you wake up one day and feel like you're in crisis, just remember that crisis stands for circumstances requiring an immediate shift in strategy. And I just love that because for me, that sets up the rest of the book.
Yeah, no, I can't say it that way. It removes the fear from crisis, right? It removes the drama from oh my goodness, things are changing. Yep, they change every day.
Yep, it's Tuesday, that's all.
Yesterday it was Monday, and the day before that it was Sunday, and the day before that it was Saturday, and last year I wasn't 52, and it is what it is. And so change is the only constant in life when you think about it. And I love what Donna just read, because the short version in my head is, shift happens, get over it.
Basically.
Right. Yeah. Well, shift happens, get over it, and start to understand the opportunity in it.
Yeah, and earlier you'll read the forward, and it talks about running towards something or running away from something, and that little bit about running through the wall, that's the end wrap up. So it's all right there. It's pretty much what you were talking about this morning on the call. Making a decide, it's going to change, figure it out. What are we going to do about it? Where's the opportunity in it?
Yeah, brilliant. Love it.
I just got right into the tactics because I knew I was going to fall behind if I didn't. So I love the first one where he talks about it's a mindset. Like, you have to prepare yourself to know it's coming. And I really loved reading this time because I lived through 2008, and it talked about the three types of people: the ones who are fearful and predict the worst. And I remember in 2008-9, I've learned too that mortgage seems to happen a little bit before real estate. So what happens to you guys are going to feel this more next year. We're going to feel it this year. And we just come out of a refi boom. Real estate market was great. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. But you know what? Looking back now, it wasn't all of a sudden it wasn't. There were a lot of things leading up to that.
Right.
And so this time I knew we were going to have a major shift. Plus I've surrounded, and I did a lot of things differently this time. This time I surrounded myself with an amazing real estate team. James Shaw's been talking about this book since COVID, the day COVID shut down. And then, yes, it was a beautiful refi boom and an opportunity to make a lot of money. But I really had to keep reminding myself, it's all about the agents. It's all about the agents. It's all about the agents, because I knew that refi boom wasn't going to last. And then everybody was going to try to come after my agents. All of you, you're probably getting more phone calls now from lenders. And I've already, like last year, I put the steps in place to try. I knew it was going to happen. So, and I'm watching a lot of newer real estate agents now looking at these three. Some of them are fearful. Some of them are, unrealistically positive. I like how I brought it out in the book. And then some I think are going to make it, but a lot will make it, a lot could make it, but a lot won't make it, is what it says too. So I think it's cool reading this book from this perspective, as opposed to where it was when it actually was written. It's a different time then.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And Tammy makes a really good point in that I was interested in reading this when it still feels like the first time we read it was when it came out, when we were literally in the looking around like, will we ever sell another house? I'm not sure. Right. And of course we did. And then we kept doing that. And then we got to 2020 when we really asked ourselves the question, will we ever sell another house? Right. I maybe you all reacted a little bit differently than I did, but towards the end of March, I kept thinking, well, that was an interesting run in real estate. I wonder what we're doing next. Right. So the idea of the idea of just no change is coming. He talks about cycles, that he's been through this a number of different times, so it shouldn't be a surprise. The other thing to remember is that shifts are not always downshifts, right? We just went through or in the middle of a 2-year shift. It was an upshift, which is not always as positive as people want to believe that upshifts are. Right? Are there struggles? Are there different issues that one has to handle? Are there different strategies you need to employ? You certainly needed to employ things differently March, April, May, June of last year, of 2020, and then a whole nother set of strategies for the last 18 months as the market behaved differently than most people were comfortable with. And yet here's the question. Did we make money? Yeah. But you can make money in any market. You just have to choose it. Donna.
Yeah, and I think it's around in this section. I've got so much pink highlighted, it's hard to tell. But the seeds of success are sown during what's it say here?
Times of adversity.
Thank you. Yeah. Sown during times of success. Yeah, exactly. And basically the thinking that, a rising tide, this market that we just went through, it lifted all the boats, whether you were doing what you should be doing or not doing it. We all made more money or had more transactions or whatever. So when that tide goes back out, that often reveals whether you have the right skills in place or not. That's what you really have to go back and be prepared for.
Yeah. Everybody looked like a genius last year. Right. And, I think I said on a morning call a couple of weeks ago, I was transparent about a conversation I had with my coach recently, and where I said, I'm struggling with the fact that last year my business has made more money than ever, which was great. And yet I don't feel like it was necessarily because of something or some things that I specifically did to drive those results, right? It felt a little more to me like a reaction to what was occurring. Are there some things I could point to that said, oh yeah, that kept people engaged, or that kept, that helps people do this, that, or the other thing? Sure. But overall, it didn't feel like I created those results. And that's a struggle for me personally, because what I know is that those times aren't going to last forever, right? And so have I set myself up for, now that the tide is as high as it's going to get, as it recedes, do the businesses just recede with the tide? Or are we taking steps to make sure that our boats stay up here? Right, because the other side of what Donna just said on the top of page 28 is the seeds of failure are usually sown during times of success, because you feel like a genius. Like, ooh, baby, I just made a whole ton of money in real estate. Look at me. All right, well, what did you do specifically that created that? Or did you just wake up and trip over some business and if it was listing side business, like, how could you fail? Which is not to minimize the work anybody did. However, from a planning perspective about what comes next, I think you always have to look at what you were in control of and what you just reacted to. Marcel.
So I don't know about yourself, but you did help us create the business we had last year by implementing this call every morning, not allowing us to stay in bed, waking up. I remember you said, it doesn't matter what day it is. If you're home, just shower, do like you're going to work, and get to the table and do the care calls and do whatever you need to do to get business. And that's what I did. I was calling, I wasn't going out, but I was reaching out to people, and my database get back to me.
Yeah, I love that. So I became your human alarm clock, right? there was if you go backwards, because what we're talking about is illustrated on 15 and 16. And those are important illustrations to make sure you understand. Right? 15 starts with so if the market is high and you've built a 20% market share, right? Because your boat rose with the tides, and then you start to do activities that keep you where you are, and the market starts to decrease, well, then proportionately your share goes up. That's what that graph on 15 says. Where now you're still doing the same stuff, the market has retreated, however, you represent now 35% market share. And if it retreats anymore and you stay where you are, you represent 50% market share. And then what's cool, the long-term version is on the next page on 16. Because now that you've gotten to that 50%, or whatever the numbers are, we're just using the numbers that Gary wrote in the book, at 50%, now the market starts to increase. And so now your boat starts to rise again with the tide, and you move from 50% of a smaller market to 50% of a larger market to 50% of an even larger. Do you see the growth factor there? So that's kind of the fun part about when markets shift, is you don't necessarily have to shift with it. You can make decisions that keep you, that there's a concept of market share gained during a shift, if played correctly, is never relinquished, right? Because you grab it and then you just stay. You do the things that you did to stay, and then as you ride the market back up, that just grows. And then you get there and the market goes down again. Well, then you do the same things. And so it's this constant growth process, which is kind of cool and fun and exciting. What else? What else did you read? What else did you hear? Yes, Tony.
So I'm for better or for worse, seek to make things as simple as possible, and I'm probably missing a lot of the wisdom of this book. But at one point when I was reading these pages, there's just really two. It's like you were saying, what's the one thing? And I've boiled my one thing down to two things right now, and I think I know what the one thing is, but my first one thing is mindset, which is what I referenced with the quote before. But the other thing that clearly it's a common thread in all of these books. And, you sort of, good market, bad market, technology, not technology, change in the market, lead generation. And what I hear consistently, and maybe I'm hoping we can elaborate on it a little bit more because it just comes up all the time, is 4 hours of lead generation, which I don't have a problem with. I mean, that makes sense to me. But that may be the one thing for me, except that if I don't have the right mindset, doing 4 hours of effective lead generation is not going to happen. But the lead generation thing is like, okay, I need to spend 4 hours a day generating leads. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like I don't need to read the rest of the book now.
Yeah, right.
So,
just go do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's what's cool about the rest of the book is that the rest of the book will tell you how to go and do that and where to focus, right? Right. So we're going to get to find the tactic 4 is find the motivated. That's all about, lead generation. And yet you're 100% right. And I'll tell you, I'm still trying to find, there was one simple line and I took my notes and promptly left them next to my treadmill. So I don't have them with me this morning, but the idea of that no business happens. Like, it doesn't matter how brilliant or not you are at this. No business happens without lead generation and conversion. And so I read that and thought, okay, well, now I found my first domino, right? And so what is that in my world? How does that show up? What do I need to do to increase it, fortify it, create a bigger, better foundation? How much is that going to cost? What is the return I'm looking for on whatever I choose to spend, right? So much of what else we talked about in these first 3 tactics, but that first domino, it is generating leads and figuring that out. Look, there's a domino.
So just to put a fine point on this, I put a star by this. It's on page 27. And it's all of this stuff is you kind of already know, right? And it says our research shows that the 2 actions real estate agents must take personal ownership of are lead generation and lead conversion. Nothing becomes more critical to success than finding motivated buyers and sellers and closing them to an appointment. Okay,
Yeah, that's actually the line I was looking for. So thank you for locating it, because that's exactly right.
Well,
Exactly
unlike
right.
my wife didn't take this one, so.
What else, Donna?
And here's the interesting thing about that. I mean, we do know that. Everybody says, oh yeah, we know that, we know that, we know that. And yet it seems that we often get confused by that. And we wander off into the weeds doing all kinds of other things, thinking we're busy and we're being productive. And we've missed the point. Until you've done your lead generation, nothing else matters. That's said many, many times. And there's a reason why tactic number 1 is about getting your mindset straight. Because as Tony just said, without that, we could be making phone calls, but if your head isn't, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know why you're doing it, if you haven't committed to it 100%, you're kind of wasting your time. I believe, I don't know this for a fact, but I believe that the tactics are written in order. And number 1 is to get your mindset straight.
So just PS, I 100% agree and believe that the tactics are written in order. 100% believe that, right? Because everything starts with your head. If you go to 48, the very last line on that page, there is no time or money in doing the 80%. You just have to be focused on the 20% that matters. Let it go. Let it go. Get over it. Get up and stop. Just stop. The 80% doesn't matter, period. And so it's like, what if you just chose to believe that? What if you just chose that that was you're going to build your business foundationally on that. And then did exercises in your own life and business to figure out where you're spending your time. It's a telling exercise. And the scary part for a lot of people is that they do that exercise and realize they're spending 90% of their time in the 80%. And then look around and say, okay, well, if I wasn't doing any of that, what on earth would I be doing? The answer is generating leads. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because they don't feel like that they either want to do that or they're not good at that. I don't want to be on the phone. I don't want to have to call people. You know, the blah, blah, blah of business whining that oftentimes creeps into our worlds. Done.
Yeah, so you touched on a couple of points there. So, and here's the thing, while we're still in the 80% and letting that go. So if for some reason you are still in a part of your business where you also get to do that 80%, you haven't leveraged it out yet, don't do that during lead generation time. That has to be in some other time. And believe me, done is better than perfect. If you're working in that 80% that you really should be giving to somebody else, don't make it all about perfection. Make it about just getting it done and figuring out some way that you can get it off your plate and onto somebody else's.
Yeah, high C's on the call, that's really hard for you, right? Trust me, I understand that better than most of you know, right? And it's hard not to be able to let go of that. And yet what Donna just said is so right. Done is better than perfect, right? Embrace the chaos, man. Just let it go. What Ben Kinney says on page, where are you, Ben?
And can I just add, oh, by the way, and oh, by the way, when you do give it to somebody else, they're probably going to do it much better than you are. They're going to do it better than you are.
Better, faster.
Better, faster, quicker, done, no aggravation, because it's probably in their wheelhouse and not in yours.
Yeah,
Is
exactly
Ben
right.
Washington State?
Yes, Bellingham, Washington.
Remarkable man.
Yes, indeed.
Oh.
And just by the way, these little quotes on the sides, if you're skipping those, go back and read them all, because those are the quotes from the mega agents that are so worth the price of admission to this book, right? And Ben says, you know, markets are chaos, and chaos is opportunity on 27. It's much easier to slip by the competition when they have their heads down pouting, or they're confused, or they're whatever, right? To continue to paraphrase Ben. When things are wonky, guess what? People get confused. Don't be confused. Keep your clarity, stay focused, know what you have to do, because it doesn't ever change. It's a matter of continuing to generate more and more opportunities for yourselves. And for some of you, let me just say this, for some of you, that, because sometimes I say to people, all right, well, focus on generating leads. Well, I have a very small database. How else should I do that? Okay, well, there are other sources, right, of business other than your database. And your database, if it's 9 people strong, well, then you're going to lead generate as best you can from those 9 people. Work through those 9 people to the 5 people that they know. So now you've got 9 plus 45, right? Start to build and make relationships with some of those people. And so if you have 10 more of those that you now become personal with, well, now you have those 5 people that they know, right? So my point is, if your database is small, instead of saying I have a small database, therefore my lead generation activities are limited, what if you decided to say, well, I have a small database, therefore my focus is going to be on tripling my database, right? Just triple the database. Too many people get to, I don't have the database she has, therefore my results will not be what her results are. Instead of saying, well, hey, how does she have such a big database? I'm going to go and do what I have to do to grow my database. And then all these things that they keep talking about with database will be relevant to me. In the meantime, I'm just going to go and find strangers to do business with. Right? Accountability, victim. Accountability, victim. You get to choose. Right? I think that was in the last book we read, wasn't it? I think so. I think so. What else? Oh, hold on. There's stuff going on in the chat I didn't realize. And it says you will find a solution or you will find an excuse. You got it. Right? What's the bold law? You can have reasons or results, and you can't have both. Just pick. Just pick. You're looking to stay focused on the 20%? I see Jen Bernanke on this call. She happens to own and run a company that handles the 80%. Just saying. Right? So if you're scratching your head wondering, well, how am I supposed to do that? I don't know, go talk to Jen. She'll just tell you. Right, Bernanke?
Yeah, I can put my contact information in the chat.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, so
I was thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rick.
just let me follow that. So often, the struggle you're having is not about what or how, it's about who. Right? If there's one thing, well, if there's one, I was going to say if there's one thing I've learned since being in business with Gary, but that would be like saying, you know, there was a rainstorm and one drop of rain fell, right? But the idea of that is so foundational that I learned from Gary is that it's about, you don't succeed alone. You have to find your five, right? Who are those five people that when you attach them to your world, change your world? And sometimes those people encourage the use of money to buy back some of your time, right? Sometimes you use money to get in business with people to buy back some of your time so that your time can then be spent focused on the things that really create the income in your industry. It's going to be different in different industries, but in ours, it's get rid of the 80% so you can focus on your 20, which is lead gen and lead conversion. Sorry, Tammy, go ahead.
I was thinking, which is, again, kind of hitting home with me a little bit, is the tactic 2, which I'm going to try your method next time. I'm going to read it backwards and then maybe I'll pick up more tactics. I'm going to try that next time. But tactic 2, where he talked about managing your business expenses. I know when there was a lot of sunshine and hay, it was easy for me to spend a little bit more money to leverage it out a little bit. But now with things changing a little bit, now I have to relook at that. And again, I see this happen a lot, even in our industry. We're buying leads, but are we calculating the expense? Like, it's easy to write checks and buy leads and feel busy when you have all the leads coming in. It happens for us too. We buy all these leads, but then what is our follow-up to converting them? Or what is, because buying leads is a lot more work than calling your database. They're not as warm. There are a lot more follow through. There a lot more. So how much work is one lead versus those 9 people in your database? And I know that is something that I'm really trying to focus on. It's like, okay, rather than trying to buy more leads and get more leads, I need to try to cultivate the garden I have. I need to try to water it, grow it. How can I help it? And not be so focused on just filling it up all the time. I don't need more tomatoes. I need to grow the tomatoes I have.
I need bigger tomatoes.
I need bigger tomatoes.
That's right. Yeah, well, and when you're the miracle grow, that feeds that, right? When you think about yourself as the fertilizer, yourself as the miracle grow, right? Think about the idea of withholding yourself, withholding miracle grow, or contributing miracle grow to those same tomato plants. The outcome of the tomatoes is different. And so my point is, you matter, right? Inserting yourself into those relationships, into that database, you matter. There are things that leverage brings your way, and there are things that, frankly, in a business like ours, you don't leverage as quickly. And your relationships is one of them. During the last shift, I knew a whole lot of mega agents who had seventh leveled themselves out of the business. And as soon as that last shift, that the last downshift happened in 7, 8, 9, they all came running back. The smart ones did. The less smart ones stayed out and said, well, why aren't you doing? Well, guess what? No one was as good at it as them with their database. So they again jumped back in to save the business. Jim Bernanke.
Kind of in the same way with the tomatoes. But if you're working with a team or you're working with, some sort of assistance, or, if you have a partner, like I have a business partner, it's important to make sure that you include them in the goals, that you make your goals their goals, you make your goals their goals, and vice versa. Because on 43, it says that, be aware that top-down imposed change can cause frustration, fear, anxiety, unrest, and even resistance. So you want to make sure that, whatever you're doing, you're keeping communication open, and you're not like just throwing things out of left field. Like I know I've worked with inside of some teams where, one day you'll come in and all of a sudden they'll just be throwing new tasks or new information at you without any like rhyme or reason behind it. So you just want to make sure that you're communicating that, and you're making, aligning people behind you and with you. So when you are paring down and you are, throwing out more tasks and everything, people understand why they're doing it and they want to do it. They want to be part of the solution. They want to be part of the change.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I would encourage, even based on what Jen just said, I would make sure that you remember that for most of you in your world, you wear two hats. You're the CEO of your organization, and you're also oftentimes its sole employee. And so are you involving both of those people? I know I sound like a crazy person, right? A little schizophrenia going on, but are you involving both of those people, even though they're both you, in that conversation? Are you having a budgeting conversation from a CEO's perspective, even if the employee you resists some of that a little bit? Are you having a relationships and a lead gen and a listings taken conversation from the employee side, and then vetting that through the CEO's eyes, right? Because oftentimes they're two different people running the same business, and they're both you. And if you have a partner or employees or team members or whatnot, certainly then there's that conversation around it being not just your decisions, right? I've lived in worlds and watched worlds too, where all of a sudden you walk in one day and there's like some new thing nailed to the front door with all the new rules. Like, when did that happen? Right. That's interesting. Oh, I don't like numbers 4 and 7. I certainly don't like number 17 and 27, right? Because the list is, 900 pages long. Involve yourself. I think that's the whole idea of tactic number 3, do more with less, from a leverage perspective. It's easy to discount, if you're a solo agent on this call, it's easy to discount a lot of tactic 3, saying, oh, I can just kind of turn the pages on this one because I'm just me, and so therefore this isn't relevant to me. And what I would encourage you to do is recognize that every word of what was written there is just as relevant if you are a solo agent. You just have to start thinking about you in a couple of different scenarios. So as the list side specialist in my business, how does this relate to me? As the buyer side specialist in my business, how does this relate to me? As the CEO in my business, how does this relate to me? If you're also the administrator in your business, how does this relate to me? Right? I even love the concept, we won't get into it now, but I even love the concept of, are you paying yourself as a solo agent based on breaking things down? There's the owner, there's the listing specialist, there's the buyer specialist, there's the admin, right? There's the marketing person. Are you paying yourself based on what those people earn, such that even if you're earning it, are you breaking it down that way such that when the time comes to step out and now that administration can be handled externally, Well, you're used to paying someone a salary to do that. You're just used to paying you. And now you're going to take the time that you used to spend on that, move it over here to generate more leads and be on more appointments, and just replace it with a different person. Instead of in your head thinking, oh, well, it's now not just me, now it's all these other people. No, it's always been all these people. All those people, however, just had the same name. Right? Does that sound crazy? That's kind of how I think about it. It's always helped me figure out what I needed to pay for, because I was just paying myself for that before. Doesn't mean there was no cost. I was still paying someone. I just happened to be paying myself. Right? John Gilbert.
And to that point, on page 38, it halfway, right above the 6 core competencies of a business, half the bottom of that paragraph says, what are my business priorities? When do they need to get done? Who's the best person to do them? And finally, how should they be done? And then if you skip to right under people on the next page, says people begins with you. So before you look at others, take an honest look at yourself. Are you maximizing your own productivity? Are you doing what matters most? So, that helps define, again, where you should be spending your time, what is going to get you to your goals, because it's your priorities. Who's going to do it? Is it me? Is it somebody else? Could I stop doing something? The question often is, what's the thing that if I stop doing it, no one will notice? No one will even care. Maybe it's that, what you fill in the blank, whatever that is. And what is the one thing that if I started doing consistently all the time, that people would notice and it would create more volume in my business?
Yeah, so true. The scariest question is what that first one Donna asked. Like, what if I stopped doing it tomorrow, would no one notice? Because I'm going to tell you what, for many of us, that thing is what we think we're great at, or that thing is what we think our whole business is based on. And so when we step back and say, well, that's interesting. I stopped doing that. Nobody cared about that. So what is my value proposition then? But I was having a conversation with someone recently who was really struggling with schedule management, and it had everything to do with the phone, and that idea that to miss a call, or to be on an appointment and not have to excuse oneself from an appointment, whether that appointment is with a client or with a family member, or it's brunch with your spouse, or like whatever, to go and take that call. And the question was asked, if you stopped doing that, do you think your business would grind to an absolute halt? And are you willing to test it? We're in the middle of the test. I'll tell you what he says. I know what the result will be, right? And yet I want him to self-discover that. We are literally in the middle of that test right now. And so another week or two, we'll circle back. And here's what I can tell you. After about a week, he has not been hospitalized. There has been no yelling or screaming that I have heard from any clients. Right, the world has continued to spin. The sun came up this morning. The moon came out last night. Right, just he had it in his head that was the most important way for him to behave, and when he stopped doing it, he got so much time back. And what he'll find is that no one will matter. No one will think it matters all that much. Look at page 39 in the margins there. Diane Kink says, more staff doesn't equate to more productivity, right? The phenomenal few can outperform, produce, and pace the mediocre many. That's like my favorite from these first 48 pages. The phenomenal few versus the mediocre many. And so what I encourage you to do is figure out, look honestly at the business you're running, and figure out where you stand there. Right? Are you part of a phenomenal few? And if you're a solo agent, what that could look like is your phenomenal few could be your mortgage partner, right? AKA Tammy. It could be the people you hire to leverage some of that 80%, right? AKA Jen, right? It could be the attorney that you are in business with. It could be the inspector you choose to do business with, right? Are they all part of that phenomenal few? And I think the hardest one to figure out is looking in the mirror to say, okay, am I part of a phenomenal few, or am I part of a mediocre many? It's hard. And yet it's necessary. It's a necessary look in that mirror, right? What else? Was that a big downer? Everyone's like, wah, wah.
No, of course, I loved the end of page 45 where it talked about making sure that you have a loan officer who understands creative financing, an inspector, an appraiser, making sure you understand those things, because I'm free, and my process for my agents is that once you hand off a lead to me, I want you to go out and get more leads. Like, I want you to go meet more people, and I'll keep everybody, like, you go out and hunt and I'll keep everybody warm and safe and sticky to us. And I like how it uses the word, that's probably where I got it from, was this book where it calls it a preferred partner rather than a vendor. And we all have a lot riding on these people, so we want to make sure, like, if you're passing it on to someone, they're taking really good care of it, and we're not leaving these people to decide some of the stuff for themselves, because we got to protect them from themselves.
Yeah.
So, and I understand exactly what Tammy meant when she said, I'm free. And yet I'm going to push back on that and say, Tammy, you absolutely are not free, because the wrong partner is very costly.
That's a good point.
So
I don't cost any money.
No, yeah, well, let's just give you the full value of the fact that when you
I
have
appreciate that.
partners and you have team members, and that's what I view them as, that's the difference between getting to the closing table and not.
And getting your offer accepted in this market. I mean, a lot of times it's going to come down to your lender. And sometimes your lender, I'll speak for, all the good lenders out there. Sometimes we're going to get information out of these listing agents that you guys just can't get. Sometimes we're going to convert your open house buyers that said they're represented by another person that you might discount. And then, oh, guess what? I found out their contract is up today and they don't really like their real estate agent. And guess what? I've just, so it's definitely a partnership.
And it's funny because I was going to say the same thing, Gilbert, is I was going to call Tammy on her freeness, but the idea, and I think the way it kind of lives in my head is, and this goes back to the text, to the material from today, you need to expect a return. As a business owner, you need to expect a return on the things you spend on. And I believe you need to have a return on the money you spend. Mm-hmm. You need to have a return on the time you spend, and you need to have a return on the relationships that you invest in, mm-hmm. right? All of them are expensive if there's no return, right? Any or all of those can cost you a whole lot and just be a drain on your budget if you misstep there, right? So whether you're physically writing a check or building a relationship and passing important clients off to someone, even though there's not a physical check being written, that return, that needs to be a 3x or a 5x or a 10x return. Because if it's a 0x or if it's a negative, because the performance is off, that's expensive. That's way more expensive than writing a $200 check for a vendor, right? Which is why I think, did Tony say it, right? That the difference between preferred partners and vendors, somebody just was reading that and I can't remember who it was, right? So I love that. 11:55, any last thoughts? I want to make sure that we tackle one. Go ahead, Donna.
Well, can I go at the very end? I want to give a plug for the seminar.
Yeah.
So I'll join in real quick. So I just, these 3 books, for me, it's funny because I think my one thing is my mindset. You know, if you know there's going to be a shift, because shifts happen, right? If your mindset has to be right, and it has to be something that's got to be tended to, for me, on a daily basis. And it's what I love about our line of work, and it's also what drives me crazy about it, because I get paid in direct correlation to the version of me that I bring to my work at any given moment. And, you know, if my mind is right, like, for example, I block my time from 9 o'clock, 9:30 at the latest. I'm on the phone and I'm generating leads. And I got sidetracked because I was talking to a buyer who is a good buyer. And I've been dealing with the husband, and I was on the phone with the wife, and she took a lot of time, and I went with it because it was important to take the time to get to know her, or maybe that was just my rationale. And I haven't done my lead generation, and I need to spend at least an hour today to do what I need to do. And I don't want to do it, but I know I have to. And but if I'm in the right mindset, I can do the phone calls between 3 and 4:30, or 4 and 5, whatever. But if I have the wrong mindset, well, people aren't going to answer the phone. It's just, and forget about a shift. If you can't manage your mindset on a day-to-day basis, when a shift comes, you may as well just close. And I know it all seems obvious, but I think we all contend with this every day. And like this morning, I went to the gym, and the biggest reason why I went to the gym is because I listened to really cool stuff, and I found something on YouTube. I don't even remember the guy's name, but it was brilliant because he said, at any given time, you're one of 4 or 5 characters. You're either a victim, you're a hero, you're a guide, or you're a villain. So 4. And he said, you got to decide at any given moment what you're going to be. And you're probably going to be all of those things. But if you're going to be a victim for a prolonged period of time, it's not going to work. So
Yeah, agreed.
I'll shut up.
Agreed. Well, and the idea of, if this is helpful, one of the things that, one of the changes that I made in my own head, my own mindset, is so much of what we think comes out as what we say, right? And I don't know if any of the rest of you feel this way, or if you're going to be calling the loony bin when I say this out loud, but although I think you're probably used to that by now. Oh, it's crazy Rick saying crazy things. To me, the thoughts that I have in my head, if they don't come out, they're slightly less powerful, right? They're in my head. I can make that adjustment. When I start to speak them out loud, now they're out in the universe, and like the universe is like pushing it, like showing it that back to me, and they've become even more powerful. So for me, I monitor the things that I say, or at least I attempt to monitor the things I say as often as I can, such that those things that are bouncing around in my head don't have the opportunity to escape and become realer than they perhaps are, right? And so one of the things that, based on what Tony was just saying, that I did a number of years ago was I changed some of the things that I said, right? You all know I don't say the O word anymore, right? That was all part of that. If you don't know what the O word is, talk to some of your colleagues. They'll tell you one of the words I don't say, because I won't say it. As a matter of fact, it came up twice in these 48 pages. And I was like, oh, avert my eyes, avert my eyes. But the other thing that I removed from my vocabulary was the idea of I have to. And I just simply don't say that anymore, because I found that I was saying it a lot. I have to go pick up my daughter. I have to lead generate. I have to write this report. I have to call this person who called and complained. I have to, I have to, I have to. And what I started to recognize with that was those 3 words, I have to, made me feel like I wasn't in control of myself. I wasn't in control of my business. I wasn't in control of my life. And if you're a control freak like me, it was important to feel in control. And so I originally changed my those words to, I have the opportunity to, right? I have the privilege to. And so in time, what that did was take the stuff that seemed like a have to and make it a gift. Right now, all of a sudden, I get to go spend time with my daughter instead of I have to go pick my daughter up. Right? It turns a negative into an opportunity. I have the opportunity to go and speak to a client. I have the opportunity to do this. Right. And so changing how what you say can help you change how you think. Someone will have to go and bring that back to Tony, because I think he had to go and meet a buyer, so he jumped off. And yet that really worked and helped me make those adjustments for myself, because it's just about gratitude. Being grateful for all the things that pop up in my life, instead of the slog of I have to. And when lead generation is the thing that determines the success of your business, and you've categorized it as an I have to, like you always have that I smell garbage face around it, right? What if you just decided that it's the gift, right? I have the gift of being able to spend 2 hours on the phone communicating with people that I care about to see if I can assist them. That to me is a whole lot different than I have to call my database. So maybe it sounds like semantics in your world, but to me it was a massive change about how I was able to put my head back on straight and retain the control I wanted. But past control, it turned into a mindset shift. It turned into gratitude versus chore, right? And that was a real help for me. So the last thing I wanted to say, I know it's 12:03 and Donna's going to close us out, was on page 47. It's 2 paragraphs, and I just want to make sure that you read them. On 47 and the top of 48, it's the 2 last paragraphs called "Getting Light on Your Feet." And oh my stars, I read that. I was on the treadmill and I read that and thought, this was worth my 48 pages, because we are so called to stay. I think about a boxer, right? If you're not light on your feet, or a dancer, or right, or even a tennis player, right? If you're not light on your feet, you're unable to change directions quickly. If your whole body weight is weighted over here and the ball goes over there, well, guess what? You're kind of screwed, because you don't have the opportunity to shift as quickly. And those 2 paragraphs to me were so visual in really staying centered and staying light on your feet. I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right, okay, it's whatever's going to come at me, that's okay. I'm ready, because I'm light on my feet. Whether it's the boxer or the tennis player or the dancer, whatever you're thinking about, that staying kind of centered, not leaned one way or the other, and being willing and able. Willing is key there. Willing and able to then make the move, jump to the left, jump to the right. Be flexible, be okay with it, and don't get so mired down in the, oh, that's not how I do that. That's not how I do that. That's not how it is to be done. That's not light on your feet. That's like cement shoes. So I just wanted to make sure that we all, I know it was at the very end, so sometimes we peter out before we finish, but those were really 2 important paragraphs that I want to be certain that we recognize. DG, bring us home.
I will. And I love that. I just have to say there's a meme going around right now, and it's a caterpillar sitting down talking to a butterfly. The caterpillar says to the butterfly, "You've changed." And the butterfly says, "You're supposed to." So that being adaptive, and I saw that's been my thing for 2022. But anyhow, so I just want to remind people that we do have a shift workshop coming up, and it's going to be 2 days. It's Wednesday the 9th and Thursday the 10th. It's in the afternoon. I think it's 1 o'clock. It's free. It's on the shift book, and it's different from what we're doing here. It's an actual workshop. It's free. James Shaw is teaching it. If you haven't been in a class with him, do yourself a favor, sit through at least one, okay? And here's the thing. If you sign up for it, there is a workbook. If all you do is sign up for it just to download the workbook, okay, that's great. But have your little workbook with you. You can do it if you're talented enough to do the whole thing online and watch it and have the workbook, great. I just downloaded, sent it to Staples, and they bound it for me. So now I have a nice little book. But I'll post that. There's a lot of good stuff coming. So stay tuned in our KW203 page, because that's where the info will live. Thank you.
Brilliant. And just, is that on KW Connect? Is he doing that live on Connect?
Yeah, it'll be on KW Connect. It will also be in the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook page, which means that it will be recorded in some form or fashion. But if you can be there live, you may actually get to participate.
What time? Do you know what time, Donna?
I think it's 1 o'clock. I think it's 1 o'clock, but I'll double check that.
Okay.
12 to 4.
12 to 4, but is that Central Time? A lot of the
good
stuff that's
point.
on Connect is in Central Time. That's why I think it's 1. But I'll double check and make sure.
Thank you. I'm definitely
Excellent.
interested in that.
Yeah, we'll get that info out to everybody. All right, guys. Oh crap.
Oh,
I always forget the next pages. Hold on. So we are starting at 49 with tactic 4, and we are going through (133). So 49 to 133. It's the next 3 tactics. It's tactic 4, 5, and 6. So it's a little lengthier than what we did for this past week. But you all your stamina is improving. I can see it week after week. We're going to keep challenging you, right? So it's about 90 or so pages, 85 or so pages. The good news about the shift book is that there's lots of graphics, so you can look at the graphics as well. So 49 through 133, tactics 4, 5, and 6 for next Monday at 11. I look forward to seeing you all. See you later, guys.
thanks.